So my predictions over the next 5 years, there will be heaps of changes. So income protection was unsustainable. The regulator came in and made a whole bunch of change. The insurers don't want to do that. The regulator doesn't want to do that again.
Yeah, every event you go to, they're all talking about how they're trying to make changes proactively so they don't have to have the government come in again.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I kept on saying in this meeting that just all get into a room, collude on your product and just sort it out. And like, I was being facetious, but ACCC doesn't like when big insurers come and collude, and they shouldn't like it. But when there's a big industry problem, ACCC can give exemptions to them. But really, my prediction is TBD is going to change over the next 5 years. It's going to be really messy for us advisors because we're going to learn what are the changes. And then in 5 years' time, it'll just be the new product that we're considering. But there'll be many, many changes. Hey there, welcome to another episode of This Week at Skye. Today, again, I've got Ashley Campbell. Thanks for joining, Ash.
Hey Phil, hey again.
All right, so last week we went to an event, the F3 Gen X event. How was it? Give me a recap. What was the event? What did you enjoy most?
Gen Next. So we started with just mixing, mingling, and then they had a panel of 3 people, 3 advisors. So we had Natalia, who specialised in giving advice to women over 50, Rob, who was a more holistic advisor, and Jess, who specialised in expats. The focus of the event and the panel questioning was all around client soft skills because it is Gen Next. It's tailored at younger advisors, newer entrants, so building up our skills in that realm. It was really good to hear from them how they have gone about building up their soft skills and that sort of thing.
So the young advisors, I like how you pointed to yourself and you didn't include both of us, but that's okay. I know I'm older. And what was your number one takeaway?
My number one takeaway was just to have empathy and curiosity when going into a client meeting, and not be afraid to say that you don't know the answer.
Yep. And how did it make you feel when someone came up to you and said, "Oh, I've seen you on these videos and you're kind of a big deal now." So how did you feel?
It was really weird because it was people that I have been following on LinkedIn as well. And so I went up and introduced myself to a few people I've interacted with on LinkedIn but haven't met in person yet. And I was like, "Oh, how are you going? Good to see your content." They're like, "Oh, I've been seeing you too." I was like, "Right."
And you went,
"Cool.
I'm kind of a big deal around here."
Yeah. Popular phrase here at Skye.
Yeah. Oh, cool. No, it was a good event. It was great to hang out with the team as well. Yes, it was a school night, so we weren't out too late, but it was good to just hang out and spend some time with the team as well. Something else that's happened this week as well, we've got some big process changes. So we've touched on it briefly here, but some of the process changes are our advisors are using more professional judgment when it comes to underwriting. So previously we were sending all of the clients' medical information de-identified to the insurance company and then waiting sometimes multiple weeks for the insurers to get back to us. And now we've given our clients the option to fast track the process slightly and just use our professional judgment on that and looking at someone's medical information. If we really do need to go to an insurer, we can still do that, but we're using our professional judgment when it comes to underwriting. How are you feeling about those changes? Have you had any yet?
Well, I've had a couple come through, but the process isn't quite ironed out yet, so they're sitting on my to-do list for later today. It's going to be really good, definitely going to make things quicker because, as you said, it has been taking weeks, and sometimes the insurers will take weeks and then ask the questions, then it takes some more weeks again on top of that. Very slow process. Hopefully that will get a bit quicker, but a little bit nervous because I've only been in the industry 18 months. So the perfectionist in me is fearful that I'll be making the wrong call, but I have the whole team behind me to ask questions if need be, and it can always go back to the insurers if it is a more complex medical history.
It's more the expectation is if you kind of know based on your experience what the outcome is, then that's fairly easy. We may as well get an outcome. But if you do need support, then obviously we've got advisors in the team who've been around for many years. I was actually looking at Eddie's. He was on the register for 20 years. So he's been around for a while, Eddie. And so there is some support. So some other changes we're making. So the biggest changes to our advice philosophy. So, at Skye, we've got an advice philosophy that says, if this, then that. And every advice firm will have their own kind of philosophy, the way they think about advice, but they're all launched. So we've kind of drip fed it over a few weeks, but now the final one got launched this morning, communicated what's changing. So how are you finding the initial advice philosophy changes?
I think they're going to be really good. It's going to make the process a lot more efficient for the clients. Hopefully they're not waiting as long as they have been to have that advice meeting. but not a lot has fed through to me yet. Being in the advice stage, the big changes are going to affect in the power planning, the preparing of the advice document. But I did have one client last week who some of the changes had flowed through to, and I'm hoping it means that she's going to go through the process a lot quicker in terms of back and forths with alternative quotes, which is something that can take up a lot of time from the advisor end.
Yeah, and some of the changes, why we're doing it is to make our advice process simpler through our kind of, looking at our overall process, what's working, what's not. Some of the issues are we go through the end of the process and we find that one thing is out of place, and so we've got to go back to the very beginning and start the whole process again because we want to get the optimal outcome for our clients, and we want to make sure our advice is in their best interest. And so some of it is just about simplifying the advice and making it easy for our clients to understand. Like, there is 100 different options we can choose. We can select this or that. And as professional advisors, we've got to at some points make it the choice easier for our clients.
Yes,
and so
I fell into that trap last week. I noticed I started talking to a client and being like, oh, we could do this or this or this. And she's like, that's a lot. And I was like, oh, whoops, sorry, I'm still new at this. I've given you way too much information.
Yeah.
Let me do my job and make the decision for you.
That's right. And that's it. And the clients trust us to make the judgment that's in their best interest. We've got a legal obligation to make sure we're acting in their best interest. But sometimes too many choices can be overwhelming and confusing. And as much as we love insurance and we geek out over it, our clients just want to get insurance cover in place, want to know it's going to pay out if they claim on it, and happy days, then they'll pay their premiums. And so that's really a big part of the changes, is really just to try and simplify what we're doing, so internally we can help our clients get insured quicker, because that is also a bit of a concern, is making sure if our clients are waiting a long time for us to get the advice and get insured, if something happens in that time, then they don't have the cover in place. So that's really what we're doing.
And so that's a lot of changes. We were doing things one way before. We're doing things a new way now. Does that mean what we were doing before was bad?
That's a good question. No, it's not. Like, the great thing about advice and insurance is two advisors can have two different philosophies, and both of them are reasonable and in the client's best interest. A lot of what we used to do is spend so much time on areas that actually didn't add value to the client. And so what we're changing is actually just removing those processes just so we can feel good and make sure we're doing the right thing. How do we just have a blanket rule that is good for 99.9% of our clients, and then the 0.1% that it's better to do the alternative? Well, we can consider that as well. So, that's the great thing about insurance. The great thing about advice is you can have two different strategies, two different thoughts, what's best for the client, and both are reasonable. So let's touch on the Advisor Ratings Musical Chair Report. You've had a look at this.
Yeah.
And you've got some fun facts out of it.
We spoke a little bit about it last week, did some more reading on it this week as well. It's a 30-page document, so there's a lot in there.
So you're going to read it word for word in this?
Absolutely. That's what we're here for, isn't it?
Yeah.
My voice is just delightful. No. So one of the pages, there's an article set called Priced Out of Protection, which again is a few pages long, but I've just taken one because there's so much meat in there. And so it starts off by talking about how only 10% of people are getting financial advice, whereas there's 68% people out there thinking, yep, I could do with some financial advice. I think this would be good for me. But there's a big gap. Of those 68% of people, only 6% of them are willing to pay what the current market rate is for advice. So if you were to go out and get advice, for most people, it's going to cost you about $3,000 to $4,000 per year. That's really expensive. They then went on to ask people, what are you willing to pay? How much do you think would be reasonable for advice? And it came out to be $500 a year, which is a 600% difference. Big disconnect.
Yeah.
Most people are probably wondering, why is this advice so expensive? Is the advisor really bringing in that much value? What's going on behind the scenes? There are a lot of regulatory costs, which I'm sure you love paying, Phil.
Yeah.
Regulatory costs, licensee costs, professional indemnity, ASIC levies, the compensation scheme of last resort. All of these things.
You're triggering me, Ash.
Yeah.
I'm getting set off already.
I could see you buzzing.
Yeah.
All of these things are non-negotiables. If you want to run a financial advice business, you have to pay for them. So they tallied this up, and it's costing about, for most licensees, about $37,000 to $83,000 per advisor. Expensive. So then
$37,000 to $83,000.
Big window.
But yeah, there's a massive window.
Still very expensive.
Yeah.
And so when they then went and broke it down to how many advice meetings and how many clients people are seeing, that came out to be $450 per client. So if people are out here saying they want to spend $500, but it's costing $450 just to keep the lights on, big disconnect.
Well, not even keep the lights on, to be licensed. We're not even talking salaries or software, or there's literally no other cost in that number other than being a licensed financial advisor on a per advisor basis. So that's a fun fact. So let me just give a recap, because I wrote it down because I like writing down notes. So, and 68% of people want to get advice. They say, hey, I think I need advice, but only 6% are willing to pay the $3,000 to $4,000. Now, here's a bit of a plug for Skye. Our fees are not that much. And so that's kind of one of the reasons why we have kept our fees at similar levels. So, individuals, they pay $330, couples $495. If you've got a self-managed super fund or you're self-employed and there's more complexity, it's a little bit higher than that. And we've talked about it over time with our team. Our cost, the regulatory cost has significantly increased in the last 2 years, significantly. And, we've had conversations like, should we increase our initial fee? And I've always come back to this idea of, well, at the end of the day, I want people like me and people like my parents when I was growing up to have access to insurance advice. And we have a very subsection of the advice. We only do insurance. And I've always been super passionate in making sure that we're providing advice to kind of the everyday Australian that's affordable and reasonable and simple. Yeah, that's why we charge lower than the average bear, so we can be affordable and reasonable. And not that anyone else charging the high fee is unreasonable, because it definitely isn't. We've just chosen to give advice in one area that means that we can scope out a lot of the costs, and we get paid a commission from the insurance providers that subsidises that cost as well.
We can find more efficiencies in our process to hopefully make the process a bit quicker for clients.
Yeah, and so when you're talking to clients and talking about the fee, have you had any big amount of pushback, or do most people kind of understand that, okay, that's a reasonable fee because based on that musical chairs report, that's kind of what people are expecting anyway?
Yeah, and I think most people hear often that advice is really expensive. And so $300 in comparison to $3,000, massive difference, much more comfortable for people to pay. Yeah. Rarely get pushback.
Yeah, and we work with great partners who refer to us and are either charging higher, and so when they come to us, they're paying less, or they're preempting that conversation about our fees as well.
And just the understanding of the importance of paying for advice and that sort of thing. But Phil, yes, you often say you're quite a big dog around here.
I'm kind of a big deal, Ash. Kind of a big deal, yeah. Yes.
I believe you went along to a closed-door meeting with Ascender last week. What happened there?
So MLC have changed names to Ascender, and they were all in on this name. That's a fun story for another day about how they changed their name and how that journey came about. But yeah, so was in a meeting with the big dogs at one of the big insurance companies. They're I think the fourth biggest insurance company. They actually just acquired another really big insurance company. Well, their policies. But some of the discussions that we talked about is challenges with total permanent disablement. And their industry-wide challenges. This is not just Ascender. Some of the things they talked to us and said, this is confidential. So as you said, I'm a big deal. I can't tell you everything, Ash. But so that was some of the challenges. The other thing that actually was super interesting is we talked about drug use and underwriting around drug use, because their head of underwriting was there. So, the great thing about these sessions is we get to ask open questions with the leadership team at insurers. Other things, they were talking about using AI, so I've got some fun facts about that, and then claim stuff. So I'll touch on TBD. So TBD is challenging for all insurers. I've been in these closed door meetings with a number of insurers, and they all just talk about TBD. They've got
even at the conference events, like Risk in Focus, that was a huge point of discussion.
And it's because they're bleeding money. And so, mental health is their biggest concern. So one stat So KPMG did a report. There's a 730% increase in mental health claims for disability over the last 10 years for the age bracket 30 to 40-year-olds. And that's massive. And insurance policies, the way they work is you set them up today, you hold them for the next 20 years, and you claim, any time in that 20-year period. So they've got insurance companies have to make kind of assessments today on projecting those future costs, or else they need to increase their premiums.
But 730%, that would be very hard to try and project for.
Yeah, I mean, this is why it's a big issue, because none of them foresaw the mental health claims with disability. Disability as well is it's meant to be totally and permanently disabled. So having permanency for mental health is really difficult to assess. And so some of the challenges are, and this is not just an Ascender specific thing, but some of the ways that their insurance companies are talking about it, there's kind of two schools of thoughts with insurers. One of them is they're looking at making TPD a progress payment. So you make a claim, over the next 5 years, we'll pay you a certain percentage of that claim for mental health. For everything else, we will pay you according to the current way it's structured. The other way they're thinking about it is making the claim more difficult, or a much more kind of balanced view on permanency. So, there are some things like psychiatric impairment scale. That's the one. And so going, well, do we change the products to have that inbuilt? And there are some other developments, like government schemes are changing. So work cover is changing. So they're removing the ability to claim on mental health. So it's not just, and that's a government-backed scheme. Yeah. So if private companies are struggling, and now the work covers of the world aren't going to cover it, it's going to fall even more on them. So my predictions over the next 5 years, there will be heaps of changes. So income protection was unsustainable. The regulator came in and made a whole bunch of change. The insurers don't want to do that. The regulator doesn't want to do that again.
Yeah, every event you go to, they're all talking about how they're trying to make changes proactively so they don't have to have the government come in again.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the funny thing is, I kept on saying in this meeting that just all get into a room, collude on your products and just sort it out. And I was being facetious, but ACCC doesn't like when big insurers come and collude, and they shouldn't like it. But when there's a big industry problem, ACCC can give exemptions to them. And so that's where I think they should get to.
Yeah, wow.
Whether insurers do that, there is appetite that they may want to consider it. But really, my prediction is TBD is going to change over the next 5 years. It's going to be really messy for us advisors because we're going to learn what are the changes. And then in 5 years' time, it'll just be the new product that we're considering. And so... but there'll be many, many changes over the next 5 years. So TBD is a really challenging one for insurers. The other one, drug use. So this is a really fun one. So the best explanation of why insurers don't cover people who disclose recreational drug use. So often you get a straight decline. If you use cocaine, you get a straight decline. Why do you think they decline for recreational drug use?
Surely it's too risky. It comes down to being able to show up to work effectively.
Yeah, I always thought it was, there is some things like, your propensity to take risk as an individual, and therefore increases the risk on the insurer. But it's actually about the fact that because it's illegal, like the drug use is illegal, they don't have studies on the impacts on
so
claims.
They just don't have the data for it.
There's literally no data. And so that was the best explanation because, advisors in the room are saying, we've got clients who are disclosing recreational drug use, and the stats, is, as a father of young girls, is very alarming. And so on the use of recreational drug use. And so people are just not disclosing. And if they disclose, they get pinged for it. But yeah, it's because they don't have the data.
You can't underwrite if you don't have the data.
Yeah, how do you underwrite? If there's no studies on the impacts on recreational drug use, then how do we do it? And in the future, as countries start to legalize some of these things, it actually means that the data will then start to show up, to then they can underwrite, and make an assessment on it, which I thought was super interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And so the last thing that I wanted to touch on is claims. Ascender, they talked about claims, and they always like to talk about claims, and Ascender was great. They were very transparent of what they're doing well and where their growth areas are. But it was the first time I listening to claims departments talk and really think about a life insurance company is one of the few kind of participants in the health space who is financially aligned to make sure people get back to full health. Now, people see that in a negative way and think, well, insurers are incentivized. They just want to kick me off claim. Well, yes, but they only want to kick you off claim if you're back to full health.
Because you're ready to go back to work.
And how many organizations in the health ecosystem are actually incentivized for someone to get healthy? Now, this isn't to have a go at any medical practitioners, but medical practitioners make money the longer you are unhealthy. Life insurers are financially aligned to the claimants to go, let's get back to full health in a reasonable way that's not going to lapse,
and
bring
even
you back
in a
to claim.
proactive way, they all have, not all, but there are a lot of programs out there with the insurers that if you're a client with them, you can get access to all sorts of support for mental health. Support for menopause is a big one at the moment.
Yeah, and huge amounts of resources are being poured in there to get early intervention, all of that. The insurers do spend a lot of time, energy and effort in that claim space. And it really just made me rethink claims. Like, we're always very insurer friendly. They are here to support our clients at the time of need. And so we need them. And so we've always been very friendly towards insurers. But just thinking about, they're actually partners to clients' health journey. When something really bad goes wrong, they can pay them money, but then they can also support them along that journey, which is super positive. All right, rant over about claims.
What have you had going on with your clients this week?
Speaking of claims, on Friday afternoon, got an email about a client's successful claim. So a client had breast cancer and we got a letter, $346,500 paid out to a client.
That's huge.
Yeah, so this client had double mastectomy back a few months ago, and then got the claim paid out. So it's really the whole reason we do this work is really when the clients need the money's in their bank account. And so AIA was the insurer. Thanks to AIA for paying out that claim. And talking about that, partnering with people, there are some benefits in the policies where there is counselling benefit. AIA will pay for counselling for either our claimant or their family if they need additional support. And so there are these benefits in these policies that go a long way. What about yourself? What have you been working on?
We've had a really interesting client situation. When you have clients that are in more blue-collar lines of work building, the insurers can have quite different ways of treating the income protection and total and permanent disability. And so we're faced with an instance where one insurer was saying there were going to be 3 exclusions, but there was going to be income protection through to the age of 65, but the total and permanent disability was going to be limited to the any occupation definition, compared to another insurer that had only 2 exclusions. The income protection benefit was only 5 years, but the TPD was going to be own occupation. So we got positives from both sides, and it was trying to work out if we were going to do a split, so maybe have the TPD from one and the income protection from the other. But then there's the bit of a mess at claim time. If you were to be on claim for permanent disablement, then you're having sources from 2 places. It was tossing up then, okay, if we're just going to pick one, who are we going to pick? And we ended up leaning on the any occupation and the to age 65 income protection benefit.
Yeah.
But including the own occupation with the other insurer as an alternative if the client wanted to go with that option.
Now, quick question for you, and you may not know off the top of your head, what was that 3rd exclusion?
I think it was hip related.
Okay. Because sometimes it matters about the exclusion as well. It's like, there's 3 exclusion, but it's my pinky finger. It's not going to impact me. Or there can be some kind of more obscure ones that we know the clients may not be as impacted by. And that's the great thing as advisors is you will make the call, what you think's in your client's best interest, but we'll discuss those options with the client and go, here's your alternative, and this is what we thought.
It's definitely an instance where the client benefited greatly from coming to an advisor, because if they went directly to one of the insurers, they would have been offered one thing and not known that it would have been a different outcome if they went somewhere else.
Have you had the client meeting yet?
No, not yet.
That'd be good to circle back around as to because sometimes you get to those meetings, you're like, I've done such a great job for you. I've done this, and this is amazing. And the client's like, oh no, I want the other one. And you're like, well, okay, we spent a hell of a bunch of work. But that's good. All right. Hey, you know what? We've got Ash's Baking Corner.
I've got to give you the baked goods.
Let's go.
They're just down there.
I saw it on the computer and I was like, hey, you trying to skip out on this baking corner. All right. Ashley. Yeah, there's the camera. What have we
What
got?
have we got?
What have we got?
It is a coconut pyramid.
I love coconut.
Oh, good. Because I was going to
Love
say, if you don't
coconut.
like coconut, that's a straight
Love
0.
coconut.
Again, from the Nordic baking book, did a Google of it and found out some people like to infuse it with all sorts of different flavours. We've just gone straight coconut and chocolate drizzle.
Okay, I got to rank yours.
How is it?
It's a little dry.
I was going to say, I haven't tried one yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be dry.
I love coconut, so it's okay for me. Tad dry.
Makes sense.
I feel so harsh doing this because I'm not a professional eater. I don't even like baked goods that much, so I'll give it a 7.
That's very generous.
I rewatched my rating last week, and I think I probably did go too high.
Too high.
I went too generous, and not intentionally. I think I rewatched it and I was like 9.5. Like, it was good, but maybe
9.5 is very high.
Maybe it
especially
wasn't that
if you said
good,
you're
so-
never going to give a 10. So
yeah. So that's why I've maybe gone a bit harsher this week, but yeah.
no, I think a
tad
7.
dry.
7's probably pretty generous
I don't know
because
how
there's
to
not a
make
lot
it
to it.
less dry though.
More butter, maybe? Don't know. Who knows?
Amazing.
Enjoy.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate it. This is my favourite segment ever. I love it. Hey, while I work out what we're talking about next, tell me about your jacket.
My jacket, one of my sisters, super creative, can do anything and is also really intelligent. Sorry, now I'm just bragging about her.
Oh, really intelligent.
She's just amazing. She made it. She made this jacket out of, I'm sure many people have seen, like the big, thick, heavy blankets that come in all sorts of colours, often in brown, because I think they were probably from around the 80s when brown was the colour. And then it's a bed sheet inside as well. So we call it a blanket because it's a blanket coat.
Did she? Okay, so it was your birthday recently. Did she give you the best birthday present out of all your siblings?
They often
Because why did you throw in the intelligence question, the fact? Because that's a weird thing to talk about your siblings.
Because she's studying biomedical engineering.
Okay.
Plus is really creative. Like
Okay,
she's
got everything.
does it all.
Left and right brain freak.
Yeah, disgusting.
So who gave you the best present out of your sisters?
She's actually painting something at the moment. So
For you?
yeah, that's going to be my birthday
So it's late?
present. It's late, but
She's not good
her
at
goal
being timely.
No, she was a year late with my dad's birthday present. So if she can get under the year mark, she's winning.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a good jacket. It's a great jacket, actually. Okay, let's talk about what is coming up this week at Skye. What's coming up for you?
Got a few things, mainly professional year related. So all of because there's so many of us, professional year people at Skye, we'll
There's not many
catch up.
professionals, but there's many professional year people.
Professional year. We're all catching up this week and just having a chat mainly about where we're at, what it looks like to finish because we're in quarter 4. So finding out, what the next hurdle is
you know
for
what?
us.
Pete's going to yell at me for going overtime, but I'm going to take liberty because you know what? He can get stuffed. But
Because he's a big dog.
how was this session the other day that Azaria ran through with you? And did she title it "Why Am I the Goat Advisor"?
No, she really steered clear of that. I think just you haven't gassed her up enough.
Yeah, I'm disappointed.
It was more how can we all be the GOAT?
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's the greatest of all time, there can only be one.
That's
So
true.
it is Azaria.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was really good soft skills presentation and in true Skye style, lots of little memes hidden throughout.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So what's coming up for me? So I actually did have another tennis match with Seb last week, but that's not this week. And I forget the scores. I won 6-2, 6-3. So love you, Sebby. But what's coming up for me? I've got some more big dog sessions. I don't know if you know, Ash. I'm kind of a big deal.
A big deal.
Kind of a big deal. So got some sessions with Tao, going and having lunch somewhere fancy. I thought it was just like a boardroom meeting, but apparently it's lunch.
Proper big deal.
And then meeting with some of our referral partners and industry associations. I'm out I'm going to the city 3 times this week. I'm a big boy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a massive week for me. So that's what's up for me this week. Hey, Ash, thank you very much for jumping on another one. I hope you get
Pleasure as
many more
always.
compliments on your next professional development session you go to. Before we finish off, I just going to ask you one last question.
What
Who's
is
your
it?
favourite team member?
Oh, Phil, you can't ask that question on this podcast.
Yeah, I can.
Who's my favourite team member?
Last week. We'll just in the last 7 days.
In the last 7 days, probably you.
Good. Great.
Because
you're a suck up.
Because I'm a suck up
Yeah.
and I need to keep my position here.
Yeah. Good. I like it. I like it. You're a suck up. yeah.
Had
That's
to be
smart.
done.
That's smart.
No one else has done it yet as well. So,
Yeah,
lean
cool.
in.
Hey, awesome. Thanks, Ash. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks heaps for watching. And if you've got any questions about Skye, what we do, or you want us to talk about any topics, chuck it in the comments. We'd love to hear more from you.